Buddy was out on a bender, and Vern was sure he was coming home with nothing. If that deadbeat didn't remember to pick even one pocket in between drinking what passed for liquor in this godforsaken country, they'd be up the creek, that's where, and without a paddle, that's how. Food was short, and Vern couldn't go in the street himself now, could he? Not for at least a week since the incident with the brick and the shop window, and that nosy old bag who had most likely gotten one hell of a good look at his face. But Buddy did come back, and he didn't come back empty-handed. He had, in fact, done pretty well, and that wasn't the only surprise headed Vern's way like a freight train. They had been in London for 6 months now, lured by Buddy's notion that a country of kings and queens and dukes and such would make far richer pickings than New York, which was overrun with foreigners and where the cops had started one of their periodic crackdowns on any crook who was unconnected. Buddy and Vern were the epitome of unconnected, and so they had stowed away on a steamer, and here they were, living in the upstairs room of a dilapidated boarding house, looking at the inexplicable frosted glass window above their door that gave an unnecessary blurry view of the hallway outside, and vaguely wondering if they'd made a mistake. Buddy maintained that they had not, and to Vern, Buddy had always been very persuasive. He came home late and, of course, drunk. Vern didn't want to make a big deal about it and merely said, "Hey, Buddy," and left it at that. But he was intrigued because Buddy had a smile on his face that promised something. "What'd you do today?" Buddy slurred. "Nothing," said Vern. "You know I can't go out. That old witch saw me for sure." "It doesn't matter," Buddy said. "I hit a place today." He sat down with the air of a hero, due his adulation. Vern was happy to oblige. "What kind of place?" he asked. "A big place." Buddy lit a cigarette, enjoying the moment. "It's kind of run down, but it was rented recently. I found it out in a pub, scouted it out and everything, learned all about it, that it was rented, and that someone's been moving in lots of stuff. Some foreign bloke." Bloke, Vern thought. Damn it if Buddy didn't sound like a native already. Bloke. His admiration of Buddy shot up another notch. "Boy, oh boy," Vern said. "I owe you an apology. I thought you'd been out drinking." "Done a little of that, I guess," Buddy said. "But that place was huge. A real estate, you know, gated and stuff, with a little lake and trees. And you got in, right over the fence, nothing to it. Place has a name even. It's called Carfax." "My," said Vern, "that's pretty." They sat contemplating this, Buddy blowing self-satisfied smoke rings. Buddy reached into his pocket and threw onto the kitchen table a golden ring crowned with a burning red stone. It fell there heavily, old and precious. "Boy," Vern said. "Boy." "Way I see it, we wait a couple of days and then sell it." Vern nodded eagerly. "Funny place, Carfax," Buddy mused. "Who'd want it? That foreigner must have been duped. Place is right next to a nut house, for Pete's sake." "You don't say," Vern said. When he went to sleep, the ring was on the table. Vern stood in the middle of the room, looking down at the floor with a ponderous face. "What's up?" Buddy asked, pulling up his suspenders. Vern pointed. The ring now lay on the floor, halfway across the room, towards the door. "Oh, shit," Buddy said, picking it up. "How'd that happen?" "We must have been drunk," Vern said. "Must have been," Buddy said. He placed the ring back in its old place on the table. "Gotta be more careful now that we got something precious around the house." They spent most of that day talking about how much a stone like that was likely to be worth, and how they would ship out to India and get in on some of that action out there in them colonies and come home rich men. They felt very benignly towards the Queen and her empire that day. Buddy went out and came back with a bottle of rye they couldn't afford, which went down smoothly. Vern woke up, hungover, took a moment to remember the rye, burped, and walked into the kitchen in search of water. He stopped short. The ring was on the floor, halfway across the room, towards the door. "I'll be damned," Vern said. "Buddy." Buddy shuffled into the kitchen behind him, blinking himself awake. "Look," Vern said. They stared. Finally, Buddy picked up the ring and put it back on the table. "Kind of funny, isn't it?" Vern said. "Well, it was all that whiskey," Buddy said. "Yeah," Vern said. "That was good, wasn't it?" When Buddy got ready to go out an hour later, Vern suddenly decided it was time to come along too, since the old woman probably never saw him and the whole thing must have blown over, surely. And what was the big deal? Nothing was taken from that shop anyhow, thanks to her. Besides, he didn't want to be alone. The next morning, Vern realized to his surprise that he was nervous about entering the kitchen. He remembered last night very clearly he had made it a point to remember certain things, primarily the location of a certain precious ring. He knew it was on the table, right there in the center. He had been the last one out of the kitchen, and he had marked it, told himself aloud, "The ring is on the table," sounding like a first-year English student. "The ring is on the table." So going into the kitchen was strangely suspenseful. Since he had said it, clearly it's on the table. The ring is on the table. The ring was on the floor, halfway across the room, towards the door. Buddy said it had something to do with magnetism. What, he couldn't think of. They sat at the table looking at the ring before them. "Buddy," Vern asked, "where is that place?" "Carfax." "East," Buddy said. "About 10 miles east of here." Vern pondered this for a while. "Where's east?" he asked. Buddy pointed, but lowered his arm when both of them realized at the same moment that he was pointing straight at their door. "What are you saying?" Buddy said. "You saying it's trying to go home?" "No, of course not," Vern said. "That'd be stupid." He picked up the ring and looked at it closely. There was a marking inside, a letter, D. Below that was a small crest, a coat of arms with things written on it in a foreign language that looked Eastern. There was something else on the crest, a dragon, it seemed. It looked lean and hungry. "Must be from some duke or something," Vern said. "You were right, better grazing here with all them nobles." He was happy to move on to something that would improve Buddy's mood. After a while, Buddy got up, cut off a piece of rope and tied the ring to a hook in the wall, and left it there lying on the table, thus tethered. The next morning, the rope was badly frayed, as if tiny teeth had gnawed at it all night. Vern felt that the ring had spent the night trying to work itself free, and he didn't like that idea at all. But he found a small, sturdy chain and now changed his prize to the same hook in the wall, saying that he'd be damned if he couldn't lick that damn foreign piece of junk. But he was always a very determined man. From the moment the chain was affixed, the ring lay on the table undisturbed, the chain slack on the wood, and there was no indication of any more movement. Vern breathed a sigh of relief, and Buddy was in the best of spirits as always when he had won. But Vern didn't enjoy thinking about the money anymore and couldn't wait for the time when the ring would be safe to sell. Seeing it there on the table, he couldn't help feeling that he was merely sulking. A ring tied to a wall just kind of looked loony. Vern read the paper, glad for the distraction of a story. He read aloud to Buddy, who was on the bed with his eyes closed. Apparently, a young woman had mysteriously died, a pretty young thing by the name of Lucy Westenra, engaged to be married to some fellow named Homewood, who was in line for some sort of title. There were ugly rumors about foul play and strange visits the girl had received at night, enough to make the story lurid and of interest to readers like Vern and Buddy. She had wasted away of some unknown illness, and even though some of London's better medical minds had been in on the case, along with a foreign doctor named Helsing, and methods as exotic as blood transfusions had been employed, she had died. Her mother had died shortly before her of a heart attack brought on, the paper darkly hinted, by some sort of fright. What gave the story a special thrill was that a person known to Vern had been mentioned in it. "Get this," Vern said. "The dead girl was friends with Mina Murray." "Who?" Buddy asked from the bed. "Mina Murray," Vern said. "Remember when I was working at that house, first week we got here? The garden and Mr. Hawkins?" "He fired you," Buddy reminded him. "Sure," Vern said. But she was real nice, Mina was. Spoke to me once. I think she sorta liked me." "Right," Buddy said. "Anyway, the girl that died, the one wasted away to nothing, says here she was best friends with Mina Murray. That's her for sure." "That's just great," Buddy mumbled. Everything was fine for the rest of that day, and Vern, being pretty quick about such things, began to forget anything out of the ordinary had ever happened with the ring at all. But on the stroke of midnight, as he sat in the kitchen reading another newspaper in the hopes of finding another mention of Mina Murray, the ring suddenly jumped in the air, straining the chain to its limit, and landed back on the table with a ring that sounded like triumph. Vern jumped from his chair and screamed. Vern had bad dreams. There was the girl, Lucy Westenra. She lay in her bed, and he was looking at her through the window. He knew in his dream that he was about to float into her room, and there was a dream horror to the thought that made him moan. Then the dream changed, and he felt that something was coming towards him, slowly but steadily, closing in, looking for him, and when he heard a voice, he woke up with a shout, because the voice had said, "There you are." When Vern tried to tell Buddy about the dreams the next day, Buddy told him to stop talking nonsense. But Buddy had deep dark circles around his eyes, and Vern suspected that he didn't sleep so hot either. They had breakfast, both pointedly avoiding looking at the ring and saying little. They realized at the same time that the temperature in the room was dropping. Vern walked to the window and looked outside. There was a tree and a bird in it, and the bird was singing, and the tree looked green. Vern exhaled and watched the cloud of his breath. "Weird climate, ain't it?" he said. Buddy, hugging himself tightly, nodded. Outside, a bee flew past the window, full of buzzing vitality. "Let's build a fire," Buddy said hoarsely. They built a huge, roaring conflagration and sat before it, telling each other how cozy they were, their teeth chattering as they said it. Another dream. There was a wolf in it. It was running. There was also a bat flying through the dark in erratic, wild curves. "That's no wolf," said a voice in the dream. "That's no bat." They sat wrapped in their blankets, both feeling ill and tired. They stared at the ring, which wasn't doing anything worthy of attention. It just lay there, looking patient and content. "Maybe we can sell it now," Vern offered. But he didn't answer, so Vern felt encouraged. "Throw it away." "It's mine, damn it," Buddy said. Buddy had a strong, if inconsistent, sense of property. There was a noise in a corner of the room, and Vern tiredly turned his head towards it. Bugs, spiders, and then a mouse all came from the cracks in the wall, the cupboards, and even the floor. They were all leaving. They streamed to the door, crawled under it, and into the hallway, deserting en masse. "Ew," Vern said. He would feel better if he got a good night's sleep, he was sure of it. But then he closed his eyes, and now he kept seeing that army of bugs running from the room. He dozed off, thinking that there was something he should do about that, some lesson to be learned from it. There was something he should do to keep out of the way of wolves. And he shuddered and was out. It had something to do with the ring. Vern did his best thinking when he first woke up, and the thought had been there, clear and crisp, like a new dollar bill. Something came from the ring that made them fuzzy and weak and wouldn't let them sleep. Some sort of poison, he was sure. Buddy had stolen a poisoned ring. But what to do? Vern scratched his head. The first clarity of the day was rapidly waning. Was there even such a thing as a poisoned ring? It had gotten cold, sure, and they'd slept badly, yes, probably from too much drinking, so the bugs, he now pieced together, had run because of the cold. It all connected nicely once you thought about it. Nothing to do with any bat. "Nothing," Vern said aloud, and opened the paper so he wouldn't have to think about it anymore. There had been an attack on children. They had been playing in some park after dark. The children said it was a woman, and the children gave her a name. They called her the Bluffer Lady. The children were dazed and pale and drained, and they had bites on their throats. See, Vern thought, other people had worse problems. He lit a cigarette and felt better. The lower the sun sank that day, the more Vern wanted to go out. But Buddy seemed unwell. He had slept most of the day. He seemed to have a fever, but when Vern touched his forehead, it was cold. "You think," Vern asked, "it would have gone all the way back to that Carfax place?" Buddy shot him a look that showed he had been thinking about the very same thing, the ring. "You know about that place," he said. "I meant to tell you, there were lots of boxes and stuff in it. Lots of them." "Stuff?" Vern said. "Boxes?" "Yep," Buddy said. "What boxes, Buddy?" "Well, like crates for things," and Vern looked at him steadily, and finally Buddy added, "coffins." Vern said. "Maybe you oughtn't have taken it." A mad flame of possession lit up Buddy's eyes. "It's mine," he said, sounding a little unsure. The sun was down, and Vern felt that he had missed a chance. Should have gone out. Well, he still could. Hang Buddy. Buddy was a grown man. He had to leave. He was sure of it now. He had to leave. Suddenly he knew what the lesson of the bugs had been, what he should have learned from them. It was simple. The lesson had been, run. He stood up. That's when the steps came up the stairs, slow and steady. The tread was heavy. "Look," Buddy whispered. There was the ring, floating in midair, the chain strained to breaking, stretched as far as it could in the direction of the door. The steps now halted just outside. Silence. Vern retreated until his back hit the wall. What was out there? A wolf and a bat? He saw, through the frosted glass, the shape of a tall man trying to peer inside. Vern cowered behind the chair. The bugs had run away. Whose crest was on the ring? Why was it so cold? A knock. Then, Buddy's voice. "Yes?" Vern closed his eyes, and he could picture Buddy standing up, standing tall, like he always said a man should, at least if he was from Texas, hitching up his pants and showing that he wasn't gonna take nothing from nobody, least of all some foreign type. A cultured, accented voice came from the corridor. "May I come in?" it asked. And in the latest of a series of spectacularly poor decisions, Buddy said, "Sure." Thank you.